hit the highlights. Uh, Went to work for the March Times in Boston, my first job. Next year, moved to Central Massachusetts to be director of a small chapter there. 3 years later, moved to Philadelphia to be director for the Southeast region of Pennsylvania. 3 years later, went to New York City. All of these situations were, quote, turnaround situations, and I kind of got pegged as a change agent. And something inside me that's strange said I liked that task. Went to San Francisco, was there for 3 years, then went back to White Plains, New York, national headquarters, as vice president for major markets in the country, and had to re-engineer the field management system over the next 4 years. Went to work for the American Foundation of AIDS Research at a time when this was not only a health issue, but a political issue. It was most well known as the Elizabeth Taylor Organization. And I'll tell you, you've really done some interesting work if your board of directors consists of Elizabeth Taylor, Michael Jackson's dermatologist, Rock Hudson's financial manager. You get the picture. We'd be Beverly Hills and New York City, and I really wasn't too nervous working with boards after that. We had a small consulting company for 3 years with a partner in Dallas and LA working with nonprofits. We moved here to Orlando, spent a little time with the Leukemia Society, became the CEO of the Coalition for the Homeless for 5 years, and then 11 years ago, as Andre said, another turnaround situation to re-engineer the United Way, and it was the best 10 years of my life. I retired a couple of months ago at the age of 74, and I wish I had 10 more years in the tank, but I don't. And let me just share, probably just emphasize a few of the things that Bob Codges has already said, because although I've known Bob 16 years, we haven't talked recently. I didn't draw my, they're pretty attractive slides, I think, but let me tell you, we got to start with, okay. Let's start with an important premise, and I think this echoes some of the things Bob said. Nonprofit is just a tax status. It's not a method of doing business. Bob pointed out that you've got to look at what your return on investment are. You've got to look at what are the most important elements of your mission. Too often I see nonprofits, particularly smaller nonprofits, doing what makes them feel good as opposed to what's going to help them get their mission done. And if they're not running it like a business, you're putting more pressure on yourself as it relates to your ability to achieve that mission. So what do you do? Well, there's the... Oh, no. I'm just pointing to you, John. Don't tear paper, just move the thing. The 28 rule, we all talk about it, we hear about it, and then we forget about it. The reality is, when you go, for instance, in my case, when I would go into an organization that I was asked to fix, you got to look at what are the most important elements to do first. And also, what's the 20, 25% of what you do that's going to result in 80 or 85% of your outcome. And you've got to learn to do that balance. And as Bob indicated, focus on the most critical things. You can't do it all. What I learned early on in my nonprofit career is that there is no single day where I could say, all my work is done, I'm going home now. The question is, what do you leave on the desk and what do you accomplish? And you've got to reevaluate that on an almost daily basis. I think this is also important. I've had a motto for a long time. Be serious about your work, but not about yourself. If I could not go to work in the daytime and laugh throughout the day with my colleagues, I wouldn't go to work. You're going to burn yourself out. You've got to love what you do, and you've got to be willing. I was often at the United Way the butt of many jokes and tricks. I mean, this was not a great crew. They were not easy on me. and it was hilarious. And you form a bond, and the day you look up and the day is over, and you can get to go back and do it again tomorrow. Um, Let me say this: if you do not feel passionate about what you do, you probably got the wrong job, and you should consider that because you will get burned out. Next is one that drives me nuts. Don't reinvent the wheel. You know, there's 1,200 United Ways in this country. And when I went there, and we would face some kind of an issue, and people are sitting in a room trying to figure out how to do it, I would say, what are other United Ways doing? Who's doing this successfully? We had all kinds of listservs we could put this question out on. Nobody was asking, has anybody ever done this? And if so, how did they do it? And to Bob's point, I don't believe I've ever had an independent thought in my life. I've always stolen some good product that I've seen someplace else and adapted it to the situation that we're addressing. Saves time, you win more than you lose, and it just makes a whole lot of sense. I mentioned this before, but this is really a key. You got to follow your passion. If you're going to work in the nonprofit field, and if you're going to work there for 47 years, and let me tell you the danger in doing that, you could end up looking like this. 25 years ago, I looked like Andre Bailey, and all of this happened. You gotta love it. If you've heard it, and all the cliches, you can find a job you love, you don't go to work, and all of that. I have to tell you that at 74, I still did not want to retire. And 2 months later, I haven't found enough to do that I love as much as what I was doing, but I'm easing into that process. To be able to drive home every night and feel like you are part of a process that helps people today in whatever area of nonprofit work you do, many times people you will never meet, is just, to me, the icing on the cake. It's the best feeling in the world. We're out of time. I just did 47 years in 7.5 minutes. Let me say just two things. One is my friend Bob Todgers. I've known him for about 16 years. I have never had to make a presentation at the same time. I've had the opportunity to introduce him many times, but he is a treasure of our community that's given one away for and just a fabulous job. She's back by And Chief John Mina, what a quality guy. He served for the last 3 years that I was there on the board of the United Way. And with all of what he did, he was always at every meeting. He's just an amazing guy. I was so proud of his leadership during that time. John, Andre, amazing process you've started here. I wish it was started 10 years ago when I was still active in the work. But,
and so you would have stolen it from us?
If I did, I would have made it better.